Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Hasani X, also popularly known as X, a business investor and consultant, and he has driven over $100 million, as it says, in client growth. So we learn from him about he helps service businesses escape the experts curse it's about where deep expertise makes it harder to communicate value. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about why good businesses disappear in the brand first economy, the three metrics that separate signal for noise and from noise, and why AI won't fix a weak foundation. It will only amplify it. Welcome to the show, X.
Pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, X. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit. A lot of service businesses across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can escape the experts curse. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to, X.
Perfect. So my background, I'm from Oakland, California, and for others around the world, it's a inner city area, impoverished, come from a place where, it's hard to make it. And there's usually not a lot of opportunity or a sense that there's something on the other side of what you have. Like, I think a lot of people out there can relate to that. You find a way to make it, but the idea that you can have more, be more, it just wasn't something that was the norm. But I did find a way, through the grace of God and through some luck to get out of that situation, to actually go to a pretty good school, an Ivy League school, get my degree, start my business, start a family, and put my family and myself on a path that I would have never imagined, given where I come from. And ultimately, and do I call you AJ?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Great.
Ultimately, AJ, what I found through that experience is that the thing that saved me and allowed me to not fall victim to some of the things that were happening around me. A lot of my peers were going to jail or my brother was killed, things like that. Like, it's in that rough area I've always had something guiding me, right? An inner voice, like a story that said, despite what's going on around me, there's something different for me. And that story, AJ, allowed me to kind of walk a path that wasn't material around me, but could guide me to take steps to avoid some of the things that were going on. And that story, I got good at communicating it, right? I got good at communicating to people a vision of possibility, a vision of where they could go, a vision of how things could be different. And that opened doors for me. And I with that knack, I became a public speaker. I became a coach and consultant. I started coaching and transforming lives. I started transforming businesses. And what I realized along the way, whether we're changing a business for the better, or we're changing a person, or we're changing our own life, it comes down to being able to communicate a better story. And that's when I, over time, became known as a chief of story, being able to communicate a story that transforms a condition and creates an opportunity to create something different. All of my business endeavors over 20 years of doing this, and the thousands of engagements I've been on, and 10,000 plus people that I've coached and trained, this has been the root. This is the secret. It's not about the single biggest thing is making sure we have a story worth telling to ourselves and to others that inspires us to move in a direction that will ultimately allow us to create a new reality, something that we're actually proud of, something that we desire, something driven in purpose. And as long as we can stay wed to that story, we can transform our condition.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story, X. So, to understand this better, you and your expertise, you talk about that you help service businesses sound as good as they really are. Help us understand about this. How do you do this? Why is it that they can't do it themselves? They need your help. And how different is it than public relations, or is it almost the same thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know how a lot of people are really good at their craft. If they're an accountant, they're a lawyer, they're a mechanic, they're a landscaper, they're really good at their craft. And for whatever reason, AJ, I don't know, we have this expectation that if you're good at your craft, you should also be good at communicating it. But those are two different muscles. Those have nothing to do with each other. So what I find is that people can be really good at what they do, but not so good at communicating it. So people come to me when they're like, you know what, I I'm good at what I do. My clients love me. I have good reviews. I do great work, but for whatever reason, business isn't coming in. And someone with half my skills and half the value delivery, they're winning. And they're like, I don't understand. And it's kind of that sobering moment where I say, it's not about who's best. It's about who has the best story. So I help people to bridge that gap who are really good at what they do to be able to communicate it. And you alluded to it. There's another irony in here. The better you get at something, i.e., becoming an expert, the harder it is to actually communicate what you do. Because AJ, here's how it works, and you'll probably recognize this. When you're starting off, you raise your hand and say, "I'll do it. Let me do this," right? And someone eventually says, "Okay, I'll let you do it." And then you do a good job, you learn, you grow. And then another person says, hey, can you do this? You go, yeah, I can do that. Yeah. And then another person. Before long, you've built your expertise by grabbing at everything you can where someone said yes, right? And you start to get good, you start to get better, you start to grow skills, you start to get a name around it. And before long, you're not just doing one thing, you're doing all of these things. And the irony of doing everything for everyone is that it becomes super hard to communicate. And your expertise now doesn't come across as sharp, connected, and to the point because you do everything. And you're too smart in terms of doing all of it to boil it down to the simplest root. And I'll give you a story. When I first learned this, I named my first leadership company Execute Sciences. AJ, think execute without an E in front. So it's XECUTE Sciences. My name is X. I was like, Execute Sciences. This is going to kill it. I was like, yes, this is a great name. I struggled, AJ, to land accounts. I couldn't close an account to save my breath. And I had been transforming and changing teams and leaders for years prior. But a mentor told me, AJ, he was like, X, it's not about being clever and cute. It's about being clear. So AJ, I changed my name. I sat down and I was like, how can I be super clear? I changed my name from Execute Sciences. And here's a nail. I actually landed a client, AJ, and it was 2 weeks into an engagement. And he finally was like, oh, I get it. X is for your name and science is for leadership. He became a client and didn't even get it. And with my mentor telling me that, I was like, I got to change. So I changed my name to Rise of a Leader. We build strong leaders and teams, right? And then I started to change my offer around building strong leaders and teams. I told stories about strength in leaders and teams. And AJ, almost overnight, we started landing 30, 60, $100,000 deals and became the fastest growing leadership company. My skills didn't change. My expertise didn't change, but the way I communicated it changed. And sometimes that is the only thing holding us back is how we communicate it. So I developed a formula in thinking through this and learning how to escape the expert's curse. It's you got to fight to find a clear message, a can't refuse offer, and compelling stories that connect. The MOS, message, offer, story. So when I sit down with someone who's really good at what they do, we're mapping that out because that is what you want to amplify into the world. All the rest of it is noise and it gets in the way of your expertise.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, X. Now, normally being an expert means you know about your stuff. You know it better than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And people who know you or come to you generally would know that you know about the stuff. A doctor is an expert, very big expert. They know their stuff. Their reference, it's a people know about them. They don't go and communicate to everyone about their story. But somebody who is a good mechanic, they are also very good at their work, but they will need to communicate their story to get better quality business. Why is it different between two experts here, X? Help us understand from that point of view.
That's a good question, AJ. A doctor had to go to school, had to get credentialed, and they have an authority, a body who says, AJ, you're a doctor. So that means a lot because somebody is vouching for your expertise. And we've been trained as a society to accept those credentials and that blanket term doctor to associate a certain level of respect to that title. A mechanic, not so much. How do I know you're good? How do I know you're going to actually do it? What mechanics are known for? Some are known for taking advantage of people. So there's a lot of skepticism associated with that profession that has nothing to do with the individual mechanic, but how we as a society relate to that profession. So some professions require far more communication to allow us to be able to convey our expertise. But even as a doctor, even though we have a title that may demand respect, being chosen as a doctor still requires you to communicate. Because especially in the saturated market, it's a demand supply thing. If you're in an area where there are a lot of doctors, your title doesn't matter much. You're going to still have to figure out how to differentiate and how to communicate why someone should choose you over other doctors. But if you're in a small town, a city, and you're the only one of those doctors, you can sit back because everybody who has that problem has to do what? They have to come to you. So I think it's a function of that title, that profession, and what people think generally in society, and a function of demand supply relationships.
Absolutely, X. Now let's come to storytelling. When you talk about storytelling and when you talk about communicating value about your expertise, what does it mean? Does it mean that it's like embellishing your resume? Or how do whether you tell a genuine story or you just create an embellished resume sort of a thing, create a story? Help
All
us
right.
understand. From many people understand telling a story means, so much chiseling your story that you apply like filters on your own face that you don't recognize yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me give you an example, and then I'm going to let me give you a practical framework, and then I'll give you an example. So one of the things that you can do is you can write down on a piece of paper or type on your phone the word story, STORY. So when I'm just working like quickly and I want to figure out the power of your story, STOR. So S is for do you have stars? Stars means reviews. So I go look and see how many other people say you're great. Because the reason we tell it is because stories help us to believe. You can say you're this, you're that, the other, but stories are the thing that make us go, I believe it. I know now that I can get it because I see others are vouching for you. I see that you've been where I've been and you know something. So stories are about anchoring in belief. Your message and offer do something else, and we could talk about that in a second. So I look for stars. Who else says this? Whether it's Google reviews or something, stars. I look for the number of people who are saying great things about you. That's important. The T is for testimonies. How many people are giving you testimonies? Stars are just a quick glance view, but testimonies are, AJ is great. He helped me to do this, that, and the other. I want to see if the testimonies have strength to them, like stories that are like, he helped me go from here to here, not AJ was great. It was awesome working with him. Those aren't strong testimonies. The O is for what's that word? Outcomes. I'm looking for cumulative outcomes. At the turn of the show, you said I drove $100 million in profit. That's a cumulative outcome that someone goes, oh, so he must know what he's talking about. AJ has done 1,000+ podcasts. What outcomes, cumulative outcomes, can we tell that vouch for us? The R are for results. We're looking for case studies. We're looking for things that say, here's the before, here's the after in black and white. And Y are your hero stories. These are the transformative stories or narrative that talk about how you've changed lives or how your life was changed. That's the acronym I go through, STORY, just as a blanket review to look at the power dynamics of your story. But let me give you an example that will make it all hit, AJ. I have a lawyer friend I worked with a number of years ago, and I have this thing called the 5-second story, the 30-second story, and the 1-minute story. And they all stack on top of each other. So when you're introducing yourself, you wouldn't say, hey, I'm a lawyer, because someone, so what, right? There are lawyers everywhere. But he says, this formula is, I help blank do blank. So I help people fight when someone's coming after their money, their livelihood, and everything that's sacred to them. If I said that, what would you do, AJ? You'd be like, wait a minute, tell me more, right? We invoked a conversation. That's the 5-second story. The 30-second story starts with some context. So you say, you know how people, really good people, sometimes they find themselves in a bad situation and someone's coming after their money, their livelihood, and everything that's important to them? I fixed that. I helped them fight, right? Now, someone leans in. Now that question invokes them and pulls them in. That's the 30-second story. The 1-minute story is where you tell your origin. You don't have to embellish. Tell why, what you do. Why do you do what you do? So here's my lawyer friend's story. He says, when I was 8, I came home and my mom was crying her eyes out. We had went bankrupt. My dad left. We lost everything. And for the next 6 years, we were in court fighting for our life and in hotels and things like that. Nobody had her back. And I swore to myself that nobody in my corner would ever have to fight alone. So I promised that, right? That's the origin story. Because, go back to the 30-second, because sometimes really good people find themselves in a position where someone's coming after their money, their livelihood, and everything that's sacred to them. So I help them to fight in those situations. They come to me. I help fix that when nobody else can. Those stories, various stories you share at different times, distinguish you from everyone else who is saying, AJ, I'm a lawyer. Nice to meet you. Because you immediately forget and you go about your day. But those stories help to pull people into your expertise, because this is actually truly who you are and what you do. You just got to be able to communicate it to pull people in.
Absolutely. Now, talking about the experts' curse. How does one even know that they have got this expert's curse? Obviously, everybody will not be suffering from that. Many people are very good at doing what they are, as well as telling their story. As an individual, service business, how do I know whether I've got this, I'm suffering from this particular thing? And then the resolution part.
There are 4 areas where it shows up. When you have the expert curse, it shows up in your marketing. You're like, why isn't this working, right? It shows up in your sales, where it takes longer to close deals. You have to jump on multiple calls. People call up and you're in conversations and they're like, well, what do you do again? How does it work? They're confused. It starts to show up with your team. Leaders tell me all the time, like, I've told them 1,000 times what we do and how we do it, and they stumble when someone asks a simple question like, what do you do? And it shows up when you hire. This is one of the big signals. You hire a consultancy, an agency, a web developer, and they build something for you. It looks good, but it doesn't convert. And what these all have in common is that these people aren't the problem. The problem is that they're amplifying noise. The expert, right? The person out front says, this is what we do and how we do it. Everybody else around you amplifies that message. The agency, the consultancy, your team, your marketing, your sales, they're amplifying it. Marketing doesn't bring in people. It doesn't create the message. Marketing amplifies it. So when those areas aren't performing, but you're really good at what you do, then that's a big signal that the root cause is that you're amplifying noise. It's the old adage, AJ, you know it, like garbage in, garbage out. Well, right. It's noise in, amplified noise out. And when those things aren't working, but you're really good at what you do, you're really good at your craft. That's letting you know that you have the expert's curse, and you got to get back to basics and figure out what your message, your offer, and your story is, so that when you hire people and you put people into play, they're amplifying signal. They're amplifying something that resonates and connects.
Right. So who helps me amplify the issue, solve the issue, as well as amplify my craft? Is it myself, artificial intelligence, or is it someone else outside? How do I figure that out?
I think sometimes just being aware of it can help tremendously. Like my mentor was like, execute sciences, come on. So I had to make the shift. But sometimes you're just too close to it. The expert's curse is the longer you've been doing it, the harder it is to realize it and to fix it. And I'll give you an example. I had someone come to a workshop on messaging, a PhD, one of the most brilliant guys I've ever known. And he had signed up to work with me after the workshop. And he came to me before our meeting. He sent me an email and a voice message. And he was super excited, AJ. He was like, X, I finally figured out my message. I'm excited to work with you. I can't wait to share it with you. But here it is. I'm telling you, this is going to be awesome. He said, businesses grow exponentially when we, what is it? Let me find it. No, businesses grow exponentially when we apply scientific research to the DNA of talent. And he was like, I got it. And I was like, what does that even mean? So I sat him down. I had to go through the exercise. I went through the process. And he was telling me about the companies he worked with and stuff like that. He was saying these firms and things like that. I was like, oh, so you work with firms. That's a key word, different from businesses. So we continue through the process, AJ. And after 10 minutes, I was like, you know what? Here's your message. Grow your people to grow your firm. And he paused and he was like, oh my God, that's exactly what we do. And he was like, I wouldn't have gotten there in 1,000 years. His brain just didn't work that way, and he's this brilliant guy, and I got to come in kind of like the dummy in the situation and just like pare it down. Like, so sometimes you need someone with an outside eye to help you to pull that forward. But there are some formulas out there that you can go. AI can help, but AI often will give you. AI is about pattern matching. And this is why I say AI can't fix your business. It will expose your business, because AI, everyone thinks they're getting great messaging and getting great copy and getting that. But what you're realizing, or what people are starting to realize, is that since everyone is using it, everyone is getting the same thing. So nothing is differentiated, right? It looks professional. It sounds like it should work, but why isn't it converting? Because it's the same. It isn't highlighting why you're different, why someone should choose you. So that's the same thing. Noise in, AI just does what? Amplified noise out. So you got to be able to speak to AI to first find the signal, not the message that you offer in a story. First find the signal. What makes us unique? What makes us special? Why someone wants to choose me? Because if you're an accountant, a doctor, a lawyer, AI knows what those people want from those professions, but it doesn't know why somebody will want it from you.
Absolutely, absolutely, X. There is so much to learn about all this from you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about what you do, how you do, and how you can change their life. What's the best way for them to do so?
Go to hasanix.com, HASANI, and subscribe to my newsletter, The Signal, and you'll be able to see some of my social media feeds there, starting to pick back up on social. And I share my stories and frameworks and simple things that will help you to create a clear message, can refuse to offer, and compelling stories.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Appreciate it. Take